Good evening and welcome to the scoping meeting for the 79 North Logistics project. This purpose of the scoping meeting is just to gather comments that can be utilized in preparation of the environmental impact report. This project is for a 400,000 square foot industrial building located at 853 East 3rd Street. And it is a plot plan, a tentative parcel map to merge 5 parcels together, and the draft environmental impact report. So I will turn this over to the environmental consultant to kind of go through the process and the project.
Good evening, Nicole Morris with TMB Planning. We're the firm that's preparing the environmental impact report. I'm sorry I have my back to you during the presentation, but I'll turn around as soon as it's over. So the purpose of tonight's scoping meeting is to go over what the project is, give an overview of the project, explain the environmental review process, the California Environmental Quality Act, and then to get input from the community on the environmental concerns that would be addressed in the upcoming EIR. So I will explain to you what that means and then what the next steps are and the additional opportunities for public input. So first, to orient you, the project is a 20-acre site. It's south of the I-10 freeway and east of Beaumont Avenue. The north boundary is East 3rd Street and the south boundary is East 1st Street. There's development, as you can see, on the west side, and then vacant land on the right side. The northwest corner of the project site is currently developed with a storage yard and office. The office building is for SCE, Southern California Edison, and it's occupied by power electrical contractors. And then the remainder of the site is vacant with some trees, as you can see in the south portion of the site and on the east. So the project applicant is seeking a plot plan approval and tentative parcel map, and to allow for the development of 404,200 square feet of warehouse building, and that would include 8,000 square feet of office. There'd be 70 dock doors on the east and west sides of the building, along with parking spaces for 429 autos and 70 truck trailer spaces. Going back a little bit, all of the utilities, water, recycled water, sewer would connect to existing lines within East 1st Street on the south end. There would also be access to the site from 4 driveways, 2 on the north at 3rd Street and then 2 on the south at 1st Street. This shows the proposed elevations. The buildings would be 42 feet high, 42 feet in height. It would be constructed in a contemporary architectural style. These are warehouse buildings, so it would be concrete tilt-up panels with accenting with wood paneling, tinted glass, and metal canopies. The color palette is expected to be blues, grays, and white tones. And the buildings would be constructed LEED certified equivalent. This shows the landscaping plan. The landscaping will be drought tolerant materials. There will be a total of 167 trees. 16 would be 36-inch box, and then they're proposing 151 24-inch box trees. At each of the 4 corners of the site would be a bioretention planter box to be constructed, and that would capture storm runoff for water quality purposes. This is a conceptual rendering of the site from the view of the southeast corner, looking at the office, where the office portion would be. So now to go over the environmental process. What is an EIR? The EIR is an informational document that informs decision makers and the public about the physical environmental impacts of a project. And decision makers use this as one of the tools to decide whether or not to approve a project. And the EIR itself has to identify if there are any environmental impacts, identify ways to reduce or avoid impacts through either mitigation measures or alternatives. And this slide shows the process. There's three main stages of preparing an EIR, all of which is important to have community input. We're at the first stage where we released a notice of preparation. What that does is inform responsible agencies that an upcoming EIR will be prepared. Responsible agencies are required to respond and explain, what environmental topics that they want to see considered, what's the scope of that, proposed mitigation measures and alternatives within the domain of their jurisdiction. It also notifies the public that an EIR will be prepared, and it provides a 30-day public review period to accept comments on environmental topics that should be considered in the EIR. So that was released on April 18th, and the 30-day public review period is up on May 17th. The next stage will be to prepare the EIR and release that for public review. We're in the process of starting our technical reports that will support the EIR. The EIR, which is called a draft EIR, will go out for a 45-day public review period. And the public will again, along with agencies, will have an opportunity to comment. And then the final stage will be to take those comments and to provide written responses in a final EIR. And that goes out for a public review period prior to public hearings. And in this case, it will go to Planning Commission for a decision on whether or not to approve the project. Our role as the CEQA consultant is to work with staff to prepare the technical supporting documentation, ensure CEQA compliance, and to work on ways to reduce environmental impacts. So our main role is to impartially disclose the environmental impacts of the project. We will also be consulting with a number of agencies throughout the process. They'll have input on the EIR, so Beaumont Cherry Valley Water District, Water Quality Control Board, Air Quality Management District, and along with the utilities. And for example, Native American Heritage Commission, we will do a Native American consultation as part of this process to determine if there's any tribal cultural resources on site. So these are the topical areas that we expect may have potentially significant impacts, which will be the focus of the EIR. And I'll just read the list. It's agricultural resources, air quality, biological resources, cultural, energy, geology, greenhouse gas emissions, hazards and hazardous materials, hydrology and water quality, noise, transportation, and tribal cultural resources. There were some topic areas where we expect there will be either no impact or less than significant impacts. They involve, and largely this is because the project is consistent with underlying general plan and zoning, or it's not designated as a special area for mineral resources, for example. So these areas that we expect to be less than significant are aesthetics, land use, mineral resources, population and housing, public services, recreation, utilities and service systems, and wildfire. So that concludes my presentation. This slide really is to show you the contact information. We're going to be accepting comments tonight. And the form of those comments should be, what are the topic areas that you would like to see addressed in the EIR based on the project and its location and your knowledge of the area? If you have any suggested mitigation measures or alternatives that we should consider, those would be good topic areas as well. I've brought a couple copies of the NOP that are on the back table, and there's also a sign-in sheet. So anyone who signs in or provides a comment letter on this NOP will receive notice in the future that the draft EIR is going out for public review. And so make sure you sign in if you want to get that notice. We also notice it normal ways with the radius list, and the city has as a special list of interested parties. And I think that's it. Really, I'm here to take any notes, address any comments that you have on the CEQA process, and make sure we get your comments into the record so we can address them in the upcoming EIR.
Thank you, Nicole. I also wanted to point out I'm the project planner. My name's Carol Kendrick. I'm located here at City Hall. My information is up there, but any questions, please let me know. And we will be providing more information on the city's website. We do have the NOP up there, but I'll be providing more information as we get it on the city's website. If you do want to make comments, what we'll do is maybe check the phone lines first, and then we'll come up to the podium so we can record the comments.
Carol, do you want them to use the request form so we have their information, or is that not necessary?
They're using the sign-in, so we'll have their information.
Okay, great. All right. I have no written comments, so I'll go to the phone lines. Jill, do we have anyone on the line?
There are no callers on the line.
Okay.
Question I'm about to ask, I'm pretty sure everybody probably is wondering the same thing, but, and I imagine no one just builds a building just to build a building. So do you have any prospects of who might be, or what types of businesses might be at this facility? I mean, if it's something that we don't know, we might not know, like AGB services or whatever, but just what type of businesses at least?
So typically at the planning stage, we don't know who the tenant's going to be. Nicole works, she's a consultant that works for the applicant, so they may have more information, but typically we don't know the end user. There are times, I think, with the Amazons we knew, but then there was, a non-disclosure statement. So if it's available, we'll definitely disclose that if we're able to, but most of the times we don't know.
It'd just be interesting to know.
Same answer here. We don't know who the ultimate tenant will be this time.
I appreciate what the gentleman was bringing up. I was thinking the same thing. Is this going to be a spec build or build for suit? And I know there's a big demand for logistics in our area, but this is a good thing to have this available. Just want to let everyone know that this is the rendering is nothing more than a plan. It's just a piece of paper, right? Nobody's broken any concrete or, no surveyor markers or, it's just a piece of paper with some drawings. So it's a time to get it right. And so I did have some concerns. So again, hopefully when you do find out if it is a build for suit, if you have somebody, that would be great. The sooner you know, the better. Also, a couple of other issues is on First Street, that's going to be an issue with traffic. What kind of additional right-of-way will be dedicated to absorb additional vehicular and truck traffic from the project? Also, how many lanes will need to be added to accommodate additional traffic flow on First Street? And also, there's an active transportation program in the state of California, and there's a demand for bike lanes. There could be a good Class 4 bike lane. Really would like to have the developer have a special focus on bike lanes and active transportation. So another issue is 3rd Street, which is, will additional lanes need to be added on 3rd to accommodate additional traffic from the project? And for me, I looked at the rendering, and for me, it would be nice as if the orientation of all truck ingress and egress were on 3rd Street. There would be no truck. Again, this is just a drawing. This is what you want to get it right. So no truck ingress or egress on First Street. Make it 3rd Street. As far as vehicular traffic, that would be a preference. But there's so much traffic on First Street. It's unbelievable, especially on Fridays. It's an hour queue to go from Highland Springs Road to I-79. So that would be a mitigation, and good luck with that. Okay, the other thing is a 3rd Street in Pennsylvania. Will there be traffic lights and other intersection infrastructure like turn lanes, additional lanes on Pennsylvania to create safe, orderly traffic flow from project onto Pennsylvania? And it's sort of like copy paste for 3rd Street and Maple. I could see that where there's going to be a little congestion there. And then even more importantly, Maple and 1st Street. I could see there might be a need for an intersection there with traffic lights, left turn lanes, pretty much the same concern as 3rd Street in Pennsylvania. You know, turn lanes, additional lanes, special traffic lighting. Okay, the other issue, let me jump to it. Okay, also Palm Ave, and by the way, I will submit this in writing, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you know, this is sort of like just to give you a heads up, that's all it is. Okay, so as far as Palm Avenue, I saw that on the rendering, is that gonna be a street, you know, or is that gonna remain abandoned? It may not exist, it's just a piece of paper. Okay, also, here's a huge one for me, is truck routes. Now, the city, I think, is constantly reassessing what would be a good truck route system throughout the city. Now we're in this area, which is an industrial area, but I do want to know what truck routes will the trucks use to get onto I-10 and I-60 for both westbound and eastbound traffic? Also going to multimodal transit, you know, if you could address that, if there might be additional right-of-way needed to accommodate cycling, pedestrian, other active transportation, or even buses, commuter buses. Okay. Now, this is a big building. It's 3 times the size of a Costco. It's not 1 million square feet. I get that. Okay. But it's a fairly good size. Another question I have is, are they going to incorporate the latest building standards or just standards in general in terms of charging stations, renewable fuel stations, interior climate control, break rooms, bathrooms, kitchen and dining areas, childcare? You know, these workers are up to 10 and 12 hours a day. I really try and think about the rights and create as good a working environment for the workers as possible with all these amenities as an essential element. And so also that a real important is climate control now. You know, a lot of these older warehouses, there's no heating and air conditioning. So, you know, it can get very hot in the summer and, you know, people can get heat stroke inside a building. There's a radiant heat factor that affects the building. So obviously, I know the engineers look at the R values and insulation to try and climate control. Okay, so now going down my list, okay, I had spec or build. Hopefully we'll know soon. What kind of warehouse uses anticipate? And I think that's a very excellent point. And I just think that's a really good point. Because if it's cold storage, you're going to need a lot more mitigation because of the diesel emissions from the trailers. Those refrigeration trailers operate on diesel. So maybe we can see, reach out to a manufacturer who has electric, or there's an electrical infrastructure. They can plug the refrigeration units into the into an infrastructure. You know, I don't know, charging system of some sort. Okay. Is it going to be fulfillment center, distribution, et cetera? Okay. Now, another one, and this is what kind of local government revenues will be generated from this project besides property taxes? Will sales tax be generated from this warehouse? And in so what way? Is it going to be a CFD? And again, this gentleman brings up a really good point, and I've heard this a lot. It's shared by a lot of residents. If we're not going to get sales tax from this, then, there's a lot of information missing when these projects are coming forward, because the city needs additional revenues for police and fire and everything else. But then all of a sudden you have a use that doesn't generate anything other than property tax. And it's all good. I mean, taxes are good for local government and so forth, but it's not nearly a biggest share. So if, for example, sales tax, CFDs also. Okay, now, here's another one. Good luck. I'm just the messenger, okay? But I'm saying good luck with this. And it's an IE issue, but also in Beaumont especially, they have a plus policy whereby developers must create 1,000-foot buffers between project and nearby sensitive receptors. That's a big one, okay? Because I've seen that. And, you know, you're going to be very close. You're going to be very close, less than 1,000 feet, less than 500 feet from nearby sensitive receptors. I'm just saying, good luck with how you mitigate that. What kinds of mitigations will you implement to comply with this? A couple of final notes, and I appreciate this. Are you going to be expecting in your design and your clients freight rail access? Will you want freight rail access? And I think that I've exhausted this, and thank you so much for this opportunity. We want to get it right. I think that our city residents here we're really getting ahead of that learning curve, so we're going to be kind of very demanding about what we get there. And so thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Does anyone else want to come on up and just say, if you can say your name for us, that'd be great.
I'm Dennis Salcedo. I live over on the south side where this warehouse is being looked at to go in. Some of the issues that we got right now is traffic access in and out of the area. And so when we add that many trucks into the area, right now, in the past 2 years, we had some issues with the trains stopping and keeping traffic going nowhere. And we also had a wildfire that came through. And I would hate to see the city get into some liability issues if we didn't increase our road infrastructure before this is even approved, because if we add more trucks to that area and even a natural disaster happens, we could possibly end up losing a lot of lives in that area. And you don't realize maybe how fast a fire can come through an area. I'm originally from San Bernardino, and I went through the Panorama fire back in '79, and it just ravaged the whole neighborhood. So that's kind of one of my big concerns is, hey, am I going to be able to get out of this area? And I'm sure that's on the minds of many residents, and not just the people on the south side, the people that live on the north side of the freeway. They still come shopping over, all the shops are over on the south side. So if they get over there and something happens, they're stuck. We're putting a warehouse in there. Is the warehouse planning to be kind of a transfer station too, where the train's going to stop and drop C trains and the trucks are going to pick up from the trains there? Then we got issues there with the train stopping all the time. So there's a lot of things we need to look into before we give the approval for it. And I definitely say road infrastructure needs to be one of the main things we look into. And if the developer is approved, that is something that has to be done prior to the project going forward. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Jim Davis. I've been in Beaumont about 40 years here. I've seen quite a bit grow. A little bit on the environmental stuff. I've been a truck driver prior to this, and you have an awful lot of truck traffic with these warehouses, and it'll probably continue. But there's no place when the truck driver delivers his load and they unload his trailer, there's no place for him to go. He parks on the streets. I don't believe anybody in here would park on the streets of Beaumont in the summer or the winter without their air conditioner or heater going. So you do have a problem. Plus there's some places now with the Amazon warehouses that the trucks are parking on the roads. And that's starting to be a considerable trash problem. They've got some legislation in the Midwest going now that the warehouses have to let the truck drivers use their restroom. Sometimes they won't even let you use the restroom. And if you take, some of this stuff is unbeknownst to the public, but if you get an appointment and there's a truck in front of you that has some damaged merchandise on board, it backs everybody up 6 or 8 hours. Whoops, I touched the thing here. And it delays everybody. So, like I said, you're not going to sit out there with no heat or air. One of the gentlemen mentioned about the thermal units on the trucks. They have to run to keep the loads. And you pick up a load in the Midwest and 10 hours drive, you have to take time off. And most drivers won't rent a motel because that's out of their pocket wages. So I don't know what the problem might be. I can speak from one side of the problem. I don't know. I don't know how you could solve it on a satisfy everybody thing, but it's something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name's Laura Patron. I am a resident of Seneca Springs, and I'm interested in hearing about the mitigation efforts in terms of like greenhouse gases that are going to be emitted from the warehouse and the health implications that might be associated with that, considering the nearby houses and even a park around the corner. And to kind of echo what people have been saying already, I think traffic is a major issue, not only on First Street in Pennsylvania, but also Beaumont Avenue. I live like 2 miles from the entrance to the 10 East, and today it took me almost 20 minutes to get onto the freeway, and this was around noon. I can only imagine what that traffic is going to look like during peak times, especially with all of the additional trucks that are going to be there. I also think something that I'm interested in hearing about are mitigation efforts in terms of noise pollution for the nearby homes. I understand that that's been a concern in previous projects. And then my final one that I was interested was really less so about environmental impacts and more so how the community is going to be notified about the project. And even like the way that they're going to be made aware about meetings like this, right? Like, you know, I found about it, fortunately, somebody posted it on a community Facebook page. And a lot of people were saying that, one, they didn't even know it was going to happen. And they didn't know how to, like, where to call in to voice their opinions. There wasn't a phone number made available. I know we spoke earlier in terms of that. So I think doing some additional outreach to the neighboring community to really get a better scope of their concerns would also be beneficial. Thanks for your time.
Yes, we will. So the scoping meeting was advertised in the Press Enterprise, and everyone that lives within a 300-foot radius were notified of the meeting, and the notice of preparation has been on our website since that went up. We did realize that the phone number was on there, so that will be added in the future. And for the project, it does have to go through several public hearings, and the environmental impact report does have to go through a 45-day public review. So there'll be a notice that goes out, again, to the agencies and residents within 300 feet. But if you want to be on the request to be notified, please just reach out to me. I can give you some of my cards when we leave here. I can put you on that list. So there's a notice when the draft EIR goes out. There's a notice when the item gets scheduled for Planning Commission, and then because it does have a tentative map, it does have to go on to City Council. So there's 3 notifications that happen. First will be the draft EIR, and then the following the 2 public hearings. So, but if you ever have questions on the project, please feel feel free to reach out to myself or any of the planning staff. We're happy to help. Because it's fairly new in the process, we can't put a lot of information up. The site plan, as we're working that out, and once the draft EIR is available, we'll have that up there. But we'll try to post more and more. But questions, please reach out to planning. We're happy to assist you. And like I said, if you want to be notified, please reach out to me. I create a running list. Do we want to check if there's anybody on the phone, Nicole?
Sure.
And then,
I have no written comments. Jill, do we have anyone on the phone?
There are no callers on the line.
yes, Ron?
I appreciate that you're reaching out through the social media.
Can you come up to the mic, so just if anybody else is watching it?
Unscripted here, full and lip, so, paper, so bear with me. Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out to social media. That is kind of recognizing the limit with the 300-foot limit. I really think that the Sacramento legislature needs to go in there. And I know in our area, we have state representatives who are really pushing very hard to get better protections for residents who are affected by these warehouses. It's a collision, right? And so that 300-foot buffer, I'm sure it's been around forever. I don't even know who wrote it. That needs to be eradicated. Also, I call in a lot, and I don't believe you're going to be able to call in. I went into the website before I came down here, and there is no YouTube link, and that was about a half hour. And I'm pretty, I know how to get into that, and so there's no phone. And it's not showing an agenda like a city council meeting where we're used to the phone. So nobody's going to call because there's no access. I'm just telling you to put that on the record. Appreciate your holding this hearing. It's very important, but just as a note, access is a real problem. It is what it is. So nobody's going to call because they can't call in.
I
So-
just want to point out, if you look up at the screen right now, we have the phone number listed right below you. So we've had that on there just to
Okay, well, I'm
mitigate
just,
staff.
as a consumer of the website, I'm a consumer resident, okay? Just like when I go into, Costco or whatever, I'm a consumer. And there was no YouTube link within, a few minutes before the hearing. And so I'm just being picky, I'm then being picky. But anyways, that 300-foot rule, I do think that, I hope our city council actually would do a resolution and send it to our state senator and our state assembly representative. That's a position the council could take. And so we need to look into that 300-foot buffer. The notification is really abysmal. And, so that is a sticking point for me. It deals with getting more, what if we had a 1 mile or 5 mile radius of notification? So especially for a rural project, there's nobody out there but cows and wildlife. I mean, what's 300 foot from a project that's in a rural area? So anyways, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, he did bring up a good point. A lot of this stuff that you guys, for as far as notifying us of what's going on and everything, it's really not that accurate because, it's not in your face right there on the website. It's not, there's no links that relate directly to certain specific things. It's just like, well, we put it up and it's up there. Well, we get that. We get that you put it up. But if we can't find it, it's pointless to say you put it up. We need to be able to find it. It needs to be more in our face for us to know about these things before you can say, oh, we put it up there. It's not the point that you put it up. It's the point that you didn't make it that visible to us. And it's not to get after you guys. It's just, in general, going forward, this is what the city should do. They should make things more visible for us to see. And that 300-foot buffer, to me, is ridiculous because it affects the traffic of people that are far beyond that 300-foot buffer. Because that road right there, you're bringing in people off the 79 that don't want to get onto the 10 over the bridge. They take that first street as an alternate route to go up Pennsylvania to get onto the freeway there. And so you got all this traffic coming off the 79, San Jacinto people, Palm Springs people, people from San Bernardino, from everywhere, coming right off the 79, taking that alternate route right around that whole warehouse. And so this warehouse is going to be affected by that traffic tremendously. And I thought what they were doing at the railroad tracks was, I thought they were putting in like a tunnel type thing like they have on Highland Springs to go underneath the railroad tracks or something. But apparently it wasn't. It was just to raise the road a little. And that absolutely fixes nothing about that area because you still have to wait for the train. And if you're waiting for the train, that's going to tie up traffic for tractors coming in from Pennsylvania area, from that direction, and tractors leaving that direction. It's all going to be tied up with them train tracks, and it's going to be horrible. Even if you put a light there on the 3rd Street, even if you put a light there, they got to make that left-hand turn. And if there's a train there and there's all this traffic coming down First and up Pennsylvania, them tractor trailers aren't going to even be able to get out into the intersection. Maybe with light, maybe, but it's going to be a disaster. But if they do it after we get that road that goes from 3rd all the way through into town, that might relieve some traffic. But at the same time, this is a big deal in the city because our infrastructure for our roads was horrible, and they didn't take into account they just put the houses before they put the roads, that type of thing. They didn't put the infrastructure in first. So it's very difficult here, especially if you're putting in a warehouse. And I'm not one to say, oh, the pollution from the trucks, no, I can rationalize things, but traffic is going to be a huge issue for this.
We are going to be working with our public information officer to make sure that there is more information that's going out to the public on social media. That was very effective, but we do recognize that there were some issues with that post, but we'll be working on that. We do have a couple more meetings coming up, so we'll be making sure that that goes out well in advance and does include all the information so that we can have as much participation as possible. And if there are any other questions, we can go ahead and conclude this scoping meeting. And like I said, any questions, please reach out to me or my staff. Thank you.